Hello friends, I hope you all are safe and healthy. In the previous video, we discussed what all adjustments can be made under section 143(1) and whether refund can be granted when notice under section 143(2) has been issued and the time for completing the proceeding under section 143(3) has not elapsed. We discussed some case laws and the important case law among them was Raghuvar Synthetics case and Vodafone Idea Limited case. Now continuing this series further, the next step is scrutiny assessment. And for getting the jurisdiction under section 143(3), AO has to issue notice under section 143(2). So we will be in this video, we will be discussing whether notice under section 143(2) has to be merely issued or served, or is there any ground on which notice can be issued or it can be issued generally. And major focus of our today's deliberation would be around service of the notice. Hi friends, this is Vaibhav Goyal, and if you like my lecture series, kindly please like, share, subscribe and do not forget to press the bell icon. So we would be first reading section 143(2). What it says: when a return has been furnished under section 139 or in response to a notice under section 142(1). So for issuing notice under section 143(2), the return has to be a return under section 139, be it regular return, belated return or revised return, or a return under section 142(1). Remember and highlight the term furnished. It is not merely a return filed, it is a return furnished. What is the effect? If there is certain defects under section 139(9) and the assessee has not cured those defects, the return has been treated as invalid by the learned AO, then whether the return can be said to be has been furnished under section 139? The answer is no, because the return has been invalidated. And since though the return has been filed under section 139, but the return cannot be said to be furnished under section 139, and any notice under this section under section 143(2) would be invalid. So the first condition is the return should be a valid return. Alright, under section 139 or 142(1), whatever the case may be, the assessing officer or the prescribed income tax authority. Now this section gives a mandate to an assessing officer or a prescribed income tax authority to issue notice under this section. What is an assessing officer? What are his powers? What is his jurisdiction? That are given in section 2 clause 7a, read with section 120, read with section 124, read with section 127. We all will be dealing this when we will be discussing section 147. We will not be discussing the power here of AO, because the CBDT has notified the prescribed authority. And who is this prescribed authority? ACIT E-Verification, Delhi. So since the effect of an assessing officer has been diluted in this section, what was the effect? That is, if a notice under this section was issued by a non-jurisdictional AO, the notice would have been invalid. What was required under this section before the prescription or before the notification of the prescribed authority was that the AO, only the jurisdictional AO, has the power to give notice. And there was the procedure of objection to the notice under section 124, and there were related case laws regarding that. Since the prescribed income tax authority has been notified, the effect has been diluted. So I have shifted those case laws and those material related to assessing officer from this section to section 147, where the effect has not been brought down. the effect remains same there. So we will be discussing the effect of section 2 clause 7a read with section 120, read with section 124, read with section 127 in 147. Now what it says, if considers it necessary or expedient, it is something different. What? Whether while issuing notice under this section 143(2), AO has to have some material or he can issue notice generally. The answer is he need not have any material, because if we import the meaning that to issue notice under this section AO has to have some material, then it would amount to adding words to the legislature, which legislature has not written in the law, but it would amount to adding words. So the courts have held no material is required while issuing notice under section 143(2). But what is the effect of this phrase? Consider it necessary or expedient. The phrase was tested in 1971 by the Honorable Supreme Court once, and it was held in that case by the Honorable Supreme Court that the notice or the order must specify the issues, and it should reflect the due application of mind. So what is the effect? It is true, no material is required while giving 143(2). However, assessing officer is bound to apply his mind to the contents of the return. When he is bound to apply his mind to the contents of the return, and only after due application of his mind, he comes up that only these issues I wish to scrutinize, or because of these issues I wish to scrutinize completely. When it comes to limited scrutiny, he will specify that only these issues. When it comes to complete scrutiny, so these are two types of scrutiny, limited and complete. So in limited scrutiny, the assessing officer has the foundation to limit himself to only those issues specified in the notice. And in complete scrutiny, he would completely scrutinize each and every claim, each and every deduction, each and every material available in the return or claim made in the return. So suppose while scrutinizing in a limited scrutiny, assessing officer feels that assessee has understated certain items on which he has not specified in the notice. So whether he can convert limited scrutiny to complete scrutiny suo motu, or is there some procedure? Yes, there is a procedure. Limited scrutiny can be converted to complete scrutiny. How? By recording reasons, and that reason should be furnished to jurisdictional principal CIT, and the approval should emanate from principal jurisdictional CIT. So limited scrutiny can be converted to complete scrutiny, and complete scrutiny is complete scrutiny in itself. There were some fretters that if limited scrutiny has been converted to complete scrutiny without taking the approval of the principal CIT, whether that assessment or addition made on non-specified issues is valid or not. Various ITAT decisions have come up, and which has said that it is beyond the jurisdiction of the AO in a limited scrutiny to assess or to make additions on non-specified issues until and unless he obtains a prior approval of principal CIT. Generally, CIT appeals disregard the claim that it is a mere administrative approval. It has not caused any prejudice to you. Why? Because opportunity was given to you, everything was given to you merely on the ground of a non-prior approval, which is in a nature of administrative nature, not in the nature of natural justice. These terms, principle of natural justice, evidence act, we will be doing when we will be studying 143(3), general principles of assessment, in our next video. So keep a watch. So we did limited scrutiny. Limited scrutiny can be converted through taking prior approval. If prior approval not taken, so it is invalid. to ensure that the assessee has not understated the income or has not computed excessive loss or has not underpaid the tax in any manner. So to check the correctness of the return and the completeness of the return, notice under section 143(2) can be issued. I am using the term issued, but whether the legislature has used the term issued? No. What is it used? Shall serve on the assessee a notice requiring him on a date to be specified therein, either to attend the office of the assessing officer or to produce or cause to be produced before the assessing officer any evidence on which assessee may rely in support of the return. So what this section says, the notice under this section has to be served upon the assessee, not merely issued. It is a matter of principle of natural justice or it is a matter of jurisdiction. Here it is a matter of not only principle of natural justice, but it is a matter of assumption of jurisdiction. Because until and unless AO assumes jurisdiction, he will not be able to assess us. And this notice gives assessing officer the jurisdiction to assess the assessee. Now, what is the time limit? In practical life, you all would be knowing what is the time limit. That the notice under this subsection shall be served not after 6 months from the end of the financial year in which return is furnished. The time limit is 6 months from the end of the financial year in which return is furnished. So take an example. The return was for. Now we will take an example. Before taking an example, let's recapitulate what we have learned in this section. Number 1, first ingredient. Notice under this subsection can be issued only for valid return. Valid return furnished under section 139 or 142(1). Ingredient number 2. The notice under this section can be issued only by the assessing officer or the prescribed income tax authority, which in our case is ACIT E-Verification, New Delhi. And this has come up because of e-assessment scheme being notified by the department. Third ingredient. It can be issued only after due application of mind on the contents of the return by the learned assessing officer. Number 3. Number 4. Notice under this subsection can be issued only to verify the correctness and completeness of the return. Number 5. The essential ingredient. The notice must be served upon the assessee within the time limit prescribed in the proviso. What is the time limit prescribed? 6 months from the end of the financial year in which return has been filed. Not merely issued, served. We will be discussing something now. We discussed all these ingredients. We discussed about invalid return. We discussed about assessing officer. Now one important case with regard to 139(9) and 143(2). Let's read it. X Limited filed a return of income for AY 1718 on 29th March 2018. The return was filed on 29th March 2018 for AY 1718. While processing return of income, defects under section 139(9) were noticed by CPC, intimating that the assessee on 28th August 2018 that though he has claimed TDS credit but not offered the income for tax. What happened? In the schedule TDS, assessing officer found that the assessee has claimed TDS, and against the TDS he has shown that this much income has been offered to tax under this head. However, while checking that head, it was observed no such income was offered. So it is a case where the return of income is defective. Why it is defective? Explanation to section 139 says, annexure statement and column in the return of income related to computation of tax should be complete. So in the first clause itself, it is defective. The defect was notified to the assessee, and the assessing he rectified the defect on 10 September 2018. Notice under section 143(2) for the said year was served on 30th September 2019. Whether the notice is valid or not. Now, what is the time limit? 6 months from the end of the financial year in which return has been filed. So the question here is, return has been said to be furnished on 29th March 2018 or return is said to be furnished on 10th September 2018. If return is said to be furnished on 29th March 2018, what is the limitation period? Limitation period is 30th September 2018. If return is said to be furnished on 10th September 2018, limitation period is 30th September 2019. Had it been the case of assessment year 1920, and the years would have changed consecutively, it would have been clear that return cannot be furnished on 10 September 2020. Why? Because the time limit prescribed for furnishing of return under section 139 is the assessment year itself. So it would have clearly said, it would have related back to the date of original filing. Alright. Similarly, here in this case, CIT versus Sohanlal Chajjamal and Kunal Structures India Private Limited versus DCIT. In both these cases, Honorable High Courts held that it relate back to the original date of filing and the limitation period would relate back from that date, and which comes out to be, in our example, 30th September 2018. So we are very much clear. Even if defect has been cured in subsequent year or on a subsequent date, the limitation period would begin from the date of original filing with relation to original filing, because no new return has been furnished. Merely generation of a new acknowledgement number by uploading of a defective return under XML does not ipso facto result in furnishing of a new return. We have to be remember that, because when we will cure the defect, an acknowledgement number will be generated. It does not result that we have filed a new return. We have only cured the defect. Alright. Now we have highlighted in our above section the term serve. Now what is this serve? Whether serve means something, it has to be issued outside the control of the assessing officer, or it has to be actually received by the assessor. And this analysis has to be seen in the light of section 13 of the Information Technology Act, because Information Technology Act has brought in vast changes, and we will be discussing just now. Now firstly, we will be discussing how the law of service operates with relation to traditional posts. Okay. Section 282 of the Income Tax Act says notice can be served by post or as an electronic record, that is email, or as provided in Civil Procedure Code in relation to service of summons. Alright, so we have three modes, either registered post or electronic record or Civil Procedure Code. So what happens? Notice under section 143(2) was issued, served, assessment was completed ex parte. In an appeal, assessee claims that no notice was served upon him. So no notice was served upon him, so therefore he could not attend the proceedings, and therefore the assessment proceedings have been completed ex parte. Now since the proceedings have been completed ex parte, he is taking a plea before the Honorable CIT appeal that, Your Honor, I have not been served with the notice. So since notice has not been served upon me, assessing officer has not assumed the jurisdiction to assess me. Since assessing officer has not assumed the jurisdiction to assess me, So the notice and the proceeding itself is invalid. He has taken that ground. What all evidences he has to produce in support of that claim? Merely stating a ground of appeal would shift the burden upon the revenue, or assessee has to rebut certain presumptions. We will look. Section 27 of the General Clauses Act says that if the following four conditions are satisfied cumulatively. Important word here is cumulatively. If the following four conditions are satisfied cumulatively, there is a presumption as to service. And when there is a presumption as to service, then the burden is not on the revenue. What are those four conditions? The envelope containing that notice must be properly addressed. It must be properly stamped. And it must be posted by a registered post, not by an ordinary post. Remember this. If it is being posted by an ordinary post, there is no presumption. And generally now, before the coming of this information technology regime, notices were being sent through speed post, which has an acknowledgement due. That is, the tracking report is generated. And the notice not returned unserved, which is very essential condition. What is essential? Notice should not have come unserved. Notice if come unserved as because the addressee refused to take the notice, then it would be deemed as service, because assessee refused to take the notice. It is not the case that the notice was addressed to a wrong person. Suppose you wish to assess Samarth Minocha and you issued notice to Vaibhav Goyal. So whether the service of a notice would be valid? The answer is no. Because you have addressed him wrongly. And if Vaibhav Goyal refuses to take the notice in the name of Samarth Minocha, it is not wrong. Now, burden of proof shifts when either of the four things, the four conditions. So what is the most important? The most important is address. So if assessee is able to substantiate that the address given in the notice is wrong or is not the address of the assessee, so it can be said no notice was served upon him, and the burden would shift upon the assessing officer to show and to establish by positive evidence hence that the notice was actually served upon this. Alright, we will be discussing this service with relation to section 292BB. You would have watched my lecture video number 1 where I have discussed section 292BB with respect to CIT versus Lakshman Das Khandelwal, Honorable Supreme Court decision. So if you have not watched that video, please go and watch that video. I would place the link of that video in my description as well. And if you have any comments with regard to that and you are not able to understand it, kindly message me in the content box. So now we will take the controversial issue number 1. What is the controversial issue number 1? We have discharged. How we will discharge a burden of presumption as to service? By showing that the address was not proper. And what should be the address? We will be reading it just in few minutes by reading rule number 127 and section 13 as well of the Information Technology. After reading these two sections, we should be able to make a change. Now, whether service to an authorized representative is a valid service. Now read an example. Notice under section 143(2) was required to be issued by 30/9/2020. Notice was issued to the taxpayer on 16/9/2020, which was dispatched on 18/9/2020. So if we talk about issuance was complete, address was complete. It was issued within the limitation period. How? Because it has been dispatched beyond the control of the assessing officer. Now it has been handed over to the postal department. So remember Kusum Agarwal versus ACIT, Allahabad High Court, and in my first video, we have elaborately discussed issuance completes when. Issuance completes when it is beyond the control of the assessing officer. Now issuance is complete here, but whether issuance is a sufficient compliance of section 143(2), the answer is no, because here the term used is service. There are various high court decisions like VRA, Cotton Mills, etc. of Punjab and Haryana High Court, which have held that issue or serve are same thing. However, they are not the same thing. We can refer to the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in R.K. Upadhyay's case. In this R.K. Upadhyay's case, it was held that issuance and service are two different things. They refer to section 143(2) and section 149, where these two terms are used differently. Rather, in that case, the term used under section 34 of the Indian Income Tax Act 1922 and the term used under section 149 of the Indian Income Tax Act 1961, these two terms were compared. There it was service, here it is issuance. So we cannot say service and issuance are same thing, and legislature has purposely kept it. Had the intention of the legislature to limit it, they would have amended it in these 40 years, 50 years. They have not. So now coming back to our question, no other notice was served upon the SSC. What was the only notice served? Which was on 18th September, which returned unserved. Why? As addressee was not available. And then notice was served upon the authorized representative. Whether service of a notice on authorized representative is valid or not. How is authorized representative appointed? When is authorized representative appointed? Authorized representative is appointed only after issuance of notice under section 143(2). Whenever a notice under section 143(2) has been issued to me, only after that I will look out for an authorized representative, chartered accountant, advocate in practice who would represent me to represent my case before the learned assessing officer. Now, there was already an authorized representative for different years, not for the year concerned, but for different years. What happened? The assessing officer served notice on that assessing officer. Can he be said to be the authorized representative for this year as well? In my humble opinion, it is not. Yet, since there was no alternative means of service was available, it was served upon him. Now, continuing further, and the authorized representative was subsequently disowned by the SSC. And for that as a particular assessment year, the SSC said, he is not my assessing officer. Sorry, he is not my authorized representative. Since he is not my authorized representative, the service of a notice by an assessing officer, on a person not related to me is invalid. Okay. So what happened? The Honorable Supreme Court in this case of ITO versus Dharam Narayan felt that notice was issued well within the prescribed time limit. However, the assessee was not available. Only in these circumstances, there was a presumption in the mind of the honorable judges that the assessee may be evading service of notice under section 143(2). And to evade the service of notice under section 143(2), he was not receiving that notice. And secondly, the subsequent disowning of the authorized representative may be an afterthought, just as to cover his case. That service is not there. Only in this background, the Honorable Supreme Court held that non-availability of the SSC when the notice was sent is sufficient, because notice was sent through a registered post and is sufficient to draw an inference of deemed service of notice if it has been served upon the authorized representative within the limitation period prescribed. So, only in this we have to see the case of ITO versus Dharam Narayan only in the light of these facts, that there was something in the minds of the judges that SSC may be evading service. We generally say to the postman, na, take this 50 rupees and don't serve the notice. Okay, na? So there was something in the mind, back of the mind of the judges, that this is going wrong somewhere. So therefore, SSC was trying to be smart. So honorable Justice Ranjan Gogoi felt, you don't be smart. Okay. Now we were discussing under section 27 of the General Clauses Act, one condition is proper address. Now SSC can only challenge that the notice was not served at a proper address. Had it been a civil law case, in a civil law case it says even if notice has not been served at the proper address, but you came to know of that proceeding and you participated in the proceeding, it would be valid. No prejudice has been caused to you, nothing has been caused to you, so it is valid. And similar provision has been introduced in section 292BB. We will be reading it again here in this. But firstly, we should address section, we should address rule 127. What is the correct address? Correct address as per rule 127 is number 1, as per PAN database. Number 2, as per the income tax return to which the notice relates. Number 3, latest income tax return. Number 4, the address as available at the MCA portal. Number 5, if the SSC has furnished any other address. So when we will be assessing officer would be issuing 143.2, there is a minor possibility that the new address, proviso, new address may be provided. Why? Because he has been filing return, there is not been any scrutiny in any year. So, assessing officer can issue at any of these addresses. And if assessing officer is not able to issue at any of the 5 addresses, he can issue at the address available with the banking company. He can issue address available with the postmaster. He can issue address available with the insurers. He can issue notice as on the address furnished in form 61A. He can issue notice in the address as furnished in form 61A. Alright. And there may be any other address available in the government records. So only and only if he is not able to serve notice to the 5 addresses. What are those 5 addresses? Repeat. As per PAN database, as per last income tax return, as per latest income tax return, as per MCA data in case of companies, and as made available by the SSC to the assessing officer. This fifth happens when he is not able to make a change to the PAN database generally, and the scrutiny proceedings begin in between. So this rule 127 sub rule 2 talks about this. And when it comes to email, now the notices will be issued by email. So at the last, similar provisions are there for email as available in the income tax return relating to the communication. Suppose if communication relates to AY 1718, email provided in the return for AY 1718. Or if in the return for AY 1819, SSC has provided a different email ID, at that email ID, or another email ID as the SSC may provide to the department. Okay, so these provisions are similar to in PAN database. Generally, there is no condition of email at the time when this rule was framed. Now in the PAN database also they are maintaining emails. Another question comes. We heard issuance is complete when it has beyond the control of the assessing officer. Issuance is complete, and service is complete when? Service is complete when it has been actually received by the assessor. This was in the context of the postal department. Now when it comes to email, then we have to refer to section 13 of the Information Technology Act. The word issue is synonymous with dispatch, and issue. Receive is synonymous with retrieve. Remember, dispatch, issue, retrieve, service. Alright. So the section 13 of the Information Technology Act says that dispatch would be complete as it is beyond the control of the assessing officer. If I interpret section 13 in the light, dispatch or issuance would be complete if it is beyond the control of the assessing officer, meaning beyond the outside the computer resource of the. And what is the computer resource? That CBDT network, income tax website, is the computer resource of the assessing officer. And retrieval means service to an assessee or an addressee is complete when? If he has a designated computer resource the moment it enters that computer resource. Dispatch is complete when it exits computer resource of the issuer. Service is complete when it enters the designated computer resource. If assessee has not given a designated computer resource, then when it is actually retrieved by the assessee. Now the whole discussion of section 13 revolves around what is the computer resource. And this computer resource has been provided, has been mentioned in e-assessment scheme notified by CBDT on 12 September 2019. So we will be reading what is a computer resource. We have done all these paragraphs. Now what it says, what is the computer resource of an assessee? Computer resource is e-filing account at ITD, mobile app. It's not WhatsApp, it's not WeChat, it's the mobile app as would be developed by the income tax department. And that not any WhatsApp, that mobile app downloaded at the registered mobile number. And what is that registered mobile number? We will be reading it. The registered mobile number is the number of the assessee as appearing in the user profile of the e-filing account. It is not the number which he provides in the income tax return. It is the number which he has provided in the user profile. That's why they continuously come now, update your contact profile, update your contact profile. If your AR has been provided mobile number and your AR has downloaded that app which is yet to be developed, if that app has been downloaded and the notice is served to your AR, it would be deemed as a valid service. So what is at the background? Now even if a notice is served to your AR, it would be a valid service. Alright. However, if in the user profile you give the number of your friend instead of giving your numbers and you say this number belongs to my friend, then notice cannot be served to him. Notice can be served either to the SSC or his legal heirs or the AR and not to anybody else. Remember this. Now the scheme has been shifted to such a level. Whether service to an AR would be a valid service, this again would be contested because ARs are for the return, not for assessment. And whether service of notice on an AR who is authorized only to file return would be valid or not, this again would be a matter of contention, which we will do when relevant jurisdiction, when relevant dicta is available with us. Alright, and e-filing account, what is an email account? Registered email account. It is as available in the user profile, similar to section rule 127, as available in the user profile, last return, PAN database, Aadhaar card at MCA, or as made available by the addressee. So can we say these are designated computer resource? If assessing officer issues a notice, then this is again an issue of contention. When the scheme provides for 5 or 6 email accounts and the assessing officer is free to issue at any, whether it is a designated computer resource of the SSC, this again would be a matter of contention. The department would contend that I have issued a notice and placed it in your e-filing account at ITD and it is your computer resource. And since it is a computer resource, it is your responsibility to go and check it. It would be deemed as if issued, as if served. Why? Service says Section 13 of Information Technology Act, since it is a designated account when it enters the designated resource. So since you have not downloaded it, you have not assessed it, but since it was your designated computer resource, the notice is deemed to be served. Then this is again a matter of contention that the notice is issued or not. Merely placing a notice under e-filing account is valid or not. Why? Because this e-filing account is not beyond the control of the department. It may be beyond the control of the assessing officer, but it is not beyond the control of the whole department, because back-end database is managed by the department. So can it be said it is beyond the control of the department or the assessing officer? This again is a matter of contention in the light of Information Technology Act. Though the department will plead very well that since notice has been placed in your e-filing account, it is a valid service, not even issuance, service, and service predates issuance. Now then again Lakshman Das Khandelwal will come, whether issuance is there or not. Okay, this e-filing scheme just we discussed. Now question comes, notice was not served in time. Assessee appeared and cooperated. So it says there is an estoppel. We create an estoppel here. What is estoppel? That you cannot object in the appellate proceedings. That you cannot object in appellate proceeding. What you cannot object in appellate proceeding? That the notice was not served in time, or was not served upon him, or was served upon him in an improper manner. So what happened? Assessing did not object before the assessing officer. Notice was not served upon him in time. Before assessing officer, he did not object. But while taking the matter to the appeal, he objected, sir, assessing officer has not issued me the notice. Kindly quash the proceedings. So the CIT appeal would say, dear assessee, you have not raised this objection before the assessing officer. Therefore, this is not valid. The purpose for introducing this proviso is that if any remedial action can be taken, that remedial action should be taken at the first instance. We would have referred, you can refer to my first video, I am saying it again. In CIT versus Lakshman Das Khandelwal, it has been said, service can be cured here, not the defect or the illegality of non-issuance. If an assessee is able to prove that the notice has not been issued, then section 292BB cannot come to the rescue of the department, as there is no estoppel against the law. What is the law? The notice has to be issued. There may be contention whether service is required or not. It is a debatable issue. But what is the settled principle of law? That notice must be issued. Alright. And there cannot be any estoppel against the law. Even if you read section 115 of the Indian Evidence Act, there is no estoppel against the law. Alright. You can refer to my first video, wherein I have discussed the case of CIT versus Lakshman Das Khandelwal. Now our major. This is another controversial case, whether service is equivalent to issue. I referred to the case of VRA Cotton earlier of Punjab and Haryana High Court. Now let's read with some concrete case as decided by the Honorable Supreme Court. Alright. The facts of the case were, M Limited e-filed its return of income for AY 1920. I have changed the dates. On 29 September 2019. Notice under section 143(2) was sent on 5th September 2020 at the address given in the PAN database, and that address was an old address. Another notice under section 142(1) was generated in the new address. Means subsequently, assessee participated in the proceedings. However, it challenged the validity of service of notice before the completion of the assessment. Alright. New address was claimed to be intimated to the AO, but no evidence was available. Assessee claimed that the notice was generated at the address in the PAN, which is not my address. Since this is not my address, or it was my old address, so you have not assumed the jurisdiction, and I have intimated you as well, and I have objected to you in the assessment proceeding. So section 292 BB cannot come to the help because assessee has objected during the assessment proceeding. Only thing that the assessee has intimated by a fresh communication is not available. Only communication available was the intimation to ROC. Assessee has intimated to the ROC that by this date my address has been changed. Assessment orders for the previous two assessment years 1718 and 1819 were received at the new address. So what was the claim of the assessee? The claim of the assessee was that I am filing returns at the new address. I have intimated the new address to the ROC, and the assessment order of a previous 2 years is being received by me at the new addresses. So the assessing officer was well aware of my new address, and when assessing officer was well aware of the new address, though I have not changed my PAN database, since assessing officer was aware, he should have issued notice to me or served notice to me at the new address, and service of a notice on the old address does not give jurisdiction to the learned AO to complete the assessment. It looks fine, the argument is fine, and there were plethora of judgments. Which says if assessee is filing return at the new addresses, if assessee is getting orders at the new addresses, it cannot be said, you cannot take the plea that he was not aware. Alright, though in the old income tax return he was writing an old address, but the latest income tax return as available before the issuance of notice, new address was there. Assessing officer is bound to issue notice at that new address. Alright. The department says, sir, though at that point of time the case late, rule 127 was not there. Now I am hypothecating the situation to cover rule 127. Department will say, sir, rule 127 says notice can be issued at the 5 addresses. What are those 5 addresses? Remember? As per PAN, as per last income tax return, as per income tax return relating to therein, as per MCA, as per proviso, the new address. He said, when we issued the notice at the PAN address, it did not return us unserved. Moreover, assessee also participated, though he objected. No prejudice has been caused to him, and the service of a notice at a PAN address is valid as per rule 127 because he has not intimated that address has changed. We had sufficient ground to assume that this is the correct address. The Honorable Supreme Court says, had it referred to it in the light of new ITBA module, because in the old postal method the judgment would have been no. Though assessee has not updated the PAN address, you should have taken due diligence, referred to his latest returns, and you were issuing notices or you were issuing communications 143.1 for the latest assessment years on the new address. Therefore, in the postal system, this case law will not be applicable. This is applicable only when the notices are being generated through ITBA module. What it says? What the Honorable Supreme Court says? Since the communication intimating change of address, assessee was claiming that I have separately intimated to cover his case under the proviso of 127. What does proviso said? Proviso said if assessee has provided a new address, the notice should be served at that new address. Since the communication was not available and assessee claimed that the form intimating ROC should be construed as intimating the assessing officer, the Honorable Supreme Court says no. it cannot be said to be a new address. Communication of new address to the assessing officer. Now, whether issuance is sufficient compliance, here the Honorable Supreme Court heard. Here the Supreme Court took the benefit of Hotel Blue Moon, where it says mandatory issuance is necessary. However, the case of Hotel Blue Moon was not with regard to service or issuance within the prescribed time period of 6 months, but it was with respect to whether mandatory issuance of 143(2) is required when return is furnished in response to 148 or 153A. It was not with regard to issue or serve. So here the Honorable Supreme Court erred. However, this would not have affected or changed the ultimate case, because it was with regard to ITBA module, issuance of a notice through an ITBA module. So since the return was electronically filed, the automated system picks up the address from the PAN database. Therefore, unless PAN database is amended, filing of return at a new address cannot be equated with communicating the new address. And what was at the back of the mind? That the assessee may be evading. Assessee may be evading service of the notice by not intimating the proper address to the department. So to avoid, because he has not intimated the new address to the department by filing form change in particulars of PAN database in form 49A. So this is the problem. So Honorable Supreme Court says you may be evading tax, you have not communicated, filing of new income tax returns at the new address is not communication, therefore, and the ITBA module issues notice at the PAN database. So it is very much essential to update the PAN database. So remember, now we have to keep our PAN database updated. If there is a change in address, intimate the change in address. Okay. So we have completed our 143.2. In our next video, we would be discussing 143.3 and with the general principles of assessments. And we will be again taking up this case, principal CIT versus iVan Interactive Limited. Why? Because this has created a plethora of confusion. What it says? 143.2 issued at an old address. 143.2 issued at an old address. It is a valid service. Assessee could not come before the assessing officer and assessment complete ex parte. Whether assessee has any right? This case we will be taking up when we will be taking up appeals, read with rule 46A. Alright, so if you have any comments, you can give in the comment section that if you want to take any other topic. So now let's recapitulate what we have done. What we have done, we have analyzed section 143 capital A. What we have, that service of notice is required of mere issuance. In my humble opinion, service is required, mere issuance is not sufficient compliance. iVan Interactive Limited was in respect of a particular circumstances. Alright, it is not generally. It was in respect to particular circumstances when assessee has not intimated the change in address at the PAN database and it was issued. Alright, now next case we did presumption of service of notice. Presumption of service of notice under section 27. What? Properly addressed, properly stamped, not returned unserved. Alright, properly addressed, properly stamped and not returned unserved. Address would be as per rule 127. What was the address? PAN database, last ITR to which communication relates, and any other address provided by the assessee or as per MCA portal. Service has to complete. Service will be completed as per section 13 of the Information Technology Act. Alright. When can an assessee make an objection? Assessee can make an objection only during the proceeding as to service. However, he can make objection as to issuance at any time. For that, you have to watch my video number 1, the State versus Lakshman Das Khandela. So I hope I would have summarized section 143.2 in the best possible manner. If you have any query, query, you can post in the comment box. In the next video, we would be doing the case law of Godse India and the circular number 14 dated 1955. Whether a claim can be taken up, new claim which has not been taken up in the return of income, can be taken up before the assessing officer by filing a mayor application or not. We will be looking at Godse India and we will be trying to limit the scope of Godse India. Hope you would have liked my content. Kindly like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon. Stay home, stay healthy. Thank you.